In 79 AD, a Roman named Marcus sat on a public toilet in Pompeii, chatting with his neighbor about gladiator fights while they both used the same sponge to wipe themselves. Hours later, Mount Vesuvius erupted, freezing this moment in time forever. When archaeologists found his remains 2,000 years later, still sitting on that toilet, they discovered something horrifying. His intestines were riddled with parasites that came from that very sponge he was sharing. This is the disgusting reality of how Romans really lived. And trust me, it gets so much worse than a communal poop sponge. We romanticize ancient Rome. We see their marble statues, their grand architecture, their sophisticated philosophy, and we imagine a civilization at the peak of human achievement. But here's what your history teacher didn't tell you. Romans had hygiene habits so revolting they'd be considered war crimes today. These people conquered the known world while brushing their teeth with human pee and wiping their butts with a sponge that hundreds of strangers used before them. I'm about to take you on a journey through the most stomach-churning aspects of Roman daily life. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Roman dinner parties ended with vomiting, why gladiator sweat was a luxury beauty product, and why being a Roman emperor didn't save you from having worms crawling out of you. Well, you'll see. Fair warning, you might want to put down that snack. Let's start with everyone's favorite topic, going to the bathroom. Today it's a private affair in Rome. It was a social event that could literally kill you. Roman public toilets or latrine were architectural marvels and hygienic nightmares rolled into one. Picture a large room with 20 to 80 stone seats arranged in a square, each with a keyhole-shaped opening. No doors, no stalls, no privacy whatsoever. You'd walk in and see dozens of people doing their business while having full conversations. Politics, sports, business deals, all discussed while defecating together. Romans saw this as perfectly normal. In fact, they had a saying, "Money doesn't stink," which came from Emperor Vespasian defending his tax on public toilets. But here's where it becomes a horror story. Instead of toilet paper, Romans used a torium, a sea sponge on a stick. Sounds almost civilized until you realize this wasn't your sponge. It was the sponge. One sponge for everyone. After use, you'd dip it in a gutter of running water if you were lucky, or a bucket of water mixed with vinegar or salt water if you weren't. Then you'd place it back for the next person. Let me paint you a picture. It's a busy day at the Circus Maximus. Thousands of people need to use the facilities. That sponge has been used by hundreds of people. The water is murky. The sponge is falling apart, but it's all you've got. Dr. Philippe Charrier, a forensic archaeologist, analyzed ancient fecal matter from Roman sites. He found that these sponges were basically pandemic delivery systems spreading around worms, whipworms, giardia, dysentery, and typhoid. But parasites were the least of your worries. Roman toilets were built over sewer systems where methane gas accumulated. Sometimes this gas would ignite. Imagine sitting there minding your own business when suddenly flames shoot up from below. Romans were so terrified of this, they painted images of Fortuna, the goddess of luck, on toilet walls. Some carried good luck charms specifically for toilet visits. The historian Ammianus Marcellinus recorded several deaths from toilet explosions. One senator was reportedly launched off his seat by a methane blast and died from his injuries. Not all Romans suffered equally. The wealthy had private toilets in their homes, basically a wooden seat over a pot that slaves would empty. Emperor Claudius was so paranoid about toilet assassinations, a real thing, that he had guards check his private latrine before each use. The poor, they used chamber pots and threw the contents out their windows with a shout of guardalù, meaning watch out for the water. Walking under windows in Rome was a hazardous activity. Now let's talk about Rome's most valuable liquid. And no, it wasn't wine. Romans were absolutely obsessed with urine. They had an entire economy built around human pee. I'm not exaggerating. There were urine dealers, urine quality inspectors, and even urine summias who could tell you which region produced the best pee for specific purposes. On street corners throughout Rome, you'd find large terracotta pots called dolia corta. These had one purpose: collecting urine from passers-by. Signs encouraged people to contribute, sometimes with crude humor. Hicnon S. said, "Maiatur, this isn't it, but pee here anyway." Professional urine collectors called phones would make rounds collecting these pots. They take the urine to processing facilities where it was aged like fine wine. Fresh urine was worthless. It needed to ferment until it turned into ammonia. Not all urine was created equal. Portuguese urine commanded premium prices because the Iberian diet, high in certain herbs, produced urine with superior ammonia content. Roman poet Catullus mocked a Spaniard named Ignatius for his white teeth, writing Ignatius because he has snow-white teeth, smiles constantly. In the country of Spain, what each man pisses, he's used to brushing his teeth and red gums with every morning. So the fact that your teeth are so polished just shows you're more full of piss. Romans used urine for mouthwash and toothpaste. They'd swish it around their mouths every morning. The ammonia did kill bacteria and whiten teeth, but at what cost? Tours were soaked in aged urine to remove stains. Slaves would literally stomp on clothes in tubs of pee, like making wine, but infinitely worse. Physicians prescribed urine for everything from headaches to cancer. They'd examine its color, smell, and yes, taste to diagnose illnesses. Animal hides were soaked in urine to soften them. That expensive leather couch Romans lounged on, pea-soaked. Mixed with certain plants, urine created blonde dyes. Roman women desperate to look Germanic would regularly wash their hair in pee. Being a phonus, urine processor was one of the worst jobs in Rome. They spent their days kneading and fermenting urine. Their skin permanently stained yellow, their sense of smell destroyed. Many developed severe respiratory problems from ammonia exposure. Yet they were essential. When Emperor Vespasian placed a tax on urine collection, there were riots. His son Titus complained about taxing something so disgusting. Vespasian held up a gold coin and said, "Does this smell?" Thus the phrase pecunia non let, money doesn't stink. But wait, you might say Romans had elaborate bathhouse. Surely those were clean. Oh, sweet summer child, Roman baths were essentially human soup kitchens where diseases were the main course. Let's start with basic math. The baths of Caracalla could hold 1,600 beakers. The baths of Diocletian 3,000. Now how often do you think they changed the water? Try once a week if they felt like it. Dr. Piers Mitchell from Cambridge University studied Roman bathwater remains. He found that by the end of each day, the water contained dead skin cells equivalent to 50, fecal matter from inevitable accidents, blood from open wounds, pus from infections, and various bodily oils and secretions. One Roman writer, Marcus Martial, complained, "The bathwater is so thick you can't see the bottom of the pool." Romans didn't use soap. Instead, they'd coat themselves in olive oil, exercise to work up a sweat, then scrape everything off with a curved metal tool called a stridle. Where did the scrapings go? Right onto the floor or back into the water. Slaves would occasionally sweep up the gray, greasy mixture of oil, sweat, dirt, and dead skin. But occasionally is the key word. Here's where it gets truly insane. The scrapings from gladiators, their sweat, dirt, and dead skin were collected and sold as a luxury cosmetic. Rich Roman women believed gladiator essence would make them irresistible. They'd mix it with their face creams, paying fortunes for vials of what was essentially athlete's toe in a bottle. Some women even drank it as a fertility treatment. One merchant's advertisement survived in Pompeii. Genuine gladiator scrapings from the Ludus Magnus, guaranteed to contain the essence of victory. Roman baths were perfect disease incubators. The warm water, the crowds, the complete lack of chlorination. It was a pathogen's paradise. Common bath-acquired illnesses included trachoma, eye infections leading to blindness, polio, tuberculosis, various skin fungi, intestinal parasites, and STDs. Yes, people had sex in the baths. One study of Roman skeletons showed that people who lived near bathhouse had significantly higher rates of bone infections and parasites than those who didn't. When Romans inevitably got sick from their hygiene habits, the cures were often deadlier than the diseases. Roman medicine was a mix of Greek knowledge, superstition, and pure sadism. For headaches, doctors would apply live electric rays to your skull. The shock was supposed to reset your brain. Drilling holes in skulls to release evil spirits was common. Surprisingly, some patients survived as evidenced by healed bone around the holes. Gladiator blood was prescribed for epilepsy. Fresh, warm, straight from the arena. Patients would rush to fallen gladiators and drink directly from their wounds. Crocodile dung mixed with chalk was applied as a face mask for clear skin. The dung was imported from Egypt at enormous cost. Ground mouse brains mixed with honey served as toothpaste, because apparently urine wasn't disgusting enough. Romans loved lead like we love smartphones. It was everywhere and slowly killing them. They used lead for water pipes. The word plumbing comes from the Latin for lead plumbum, cooking pots, wine sweetener, lead acetate called sugar of lead, face makeup, hair dyes, and medicine. The result, widespread lead poisoning causing infertility, brain damage, violent mood swings, hallucinations, and death. Some historians believe lead poisoning contributed to the madness of emperors like Caligula and Nero. Their erratic behavior might have been chronic lead exposure. You'd think eating would be the one safe activity, right? Wrong. Roman dining was a biohazard buffet. First, let's clear something up. Vomitoriums weren't rooms for vomiting. They were passages in amphitheaters. But Romans did vomit at dinner parties a lot. Every Roman meal featured garum, a source made from fermented fish guts. The production process was so foul it was illegal to make it within city limits. Roman feasts featured dormice stuffed with pork and pine nuts, flamingo tongues, peacock brains, camel heels, jellyfish omelets, saw's wombs, and stuffed udders. Despite their engineering marvels, Romans were walking parasite hotels. Dr. Piers Mitchell's groundbreaking study of Roman-era human remains revealed that 90% had intestinal parasites. Ascaris roundorum could grow up to 14 inches long and lived in your intestines. Females laid 200,000 eggs daily. Sometimes worms would crawl out of people's noses or mouths during sleep. Fish tapeworm from undercooked fish and garum could grow 30 feet long inside you. Romans would starve themselves, then tempt the worm out with milk placed near their mouths. Why so many parasites? Romans used human feces to fertilize crops. Parasite eggs survived and infected food. The communal toilet sponges spread parasites person to person. Warm, stagnant bath water was perfect for parasite transmission. When we talk about the fall of Rome, we mentioned barbarian invasions, political instability, economic collapse. But what about the biological warfare they waged on themselves daily? The Antine plague, possibly smallpox, killed 10% of the population. So the next time you romanticize ancient Rome, remember they shared butt sponges with hundreds of strangers. Tonight, when you use your private bathroom with clean toilet paper, soap that isn't made from ash and animal fat, and water that isn't full of parasites, take a moment to appreciate it. You're living better than Caesar himself. What's the most disturbing fact you learned? Comment below. If your stomach can handle thinking about it again, and if you think this was bad, wait until you see my next video. Why Roman emperors kept dying on the toilet. Spoiler, it wasn't always natural causes. Remember to like, subscribe, and wash your hands with actual soap in private. You've earned it.